I'm Ryan O'Doud, and you're listening to Ryan's Audiobooks on the Issues Magazine channel. Today we're continuing with the Psychic Bible, the apocryphal scriptures of Genesis P-Orridge, and the third mind of the Temple of Psychic Youth. This is section 114. We'll be reading Love with Horns, Part 8, and The Door of Light, Part 9. Understanding in a special way. Empathic, intersubjective. The imagination assumption of another's identity without prejudice. A true regard and respect for the meanings which the individual generates in his or her engagement with the world. Morality is a null concept, void of any usefulness now. The only code worth having is the code born of reflective experience. Critical empathy, love with horns, is the nearest thing we have to telepathy, a mutual intuitive reflex. But deeper still, we all know each other perfectly. Strangely, this empathy is rarely accomplished, rarely practiced, becomes corrupted by the mealy-mouthed. When the individual is undermined, it does not feel safe to explore, to fully venture towards another. We have become debilitated to such an extent that many of us only have a precarious hold on what we perceive to be our identities. Scared, we latch onto and attempt to concretize that facet of ourselves which attracts least reprehension. What exists is smothered, stifled, becomes more and more out of focus. Without focus, the social interactions in which we engage become schizophrenic in character, are cloven. The encoded message is schismatic, essential suicide. Divide and conquer. But conquer what exactly? The crippled slave can praise, can grovel, but cannot work. Everybody loses, all is lost. In such circumstances, how can we go out and interact with others in anything other than insecurity, doubt, suspicion, introversion, and distance? Our motives become small, disconnected, and misplaced. The other has become a threat, a multiform projection of the ancient enemy, the object of neglect, the self, the shadow. The shadow possesses such fierce vitality. When we repress it, curdle it, it hurts so bad it wants out. Becomes very ugly indeed. We create the prison, the iron cage, armor our personality. We jump on the suitcases of our psychic language to secure the straps as we hurtle towards the grave where we will fill the final hole. We are without, desolate, but no thing is ever really lost. At any moment we are free to choose to throw the prison open, to find the optimum state, but I forget how and even why. Deliberately, as we do all. We never remember. We twist authenticity into a devil, an adversary. Bad faith pandemic. We break our vulnerable young horns again and again. Cummings wrote, "We doctors know a hopeless case when, listen, there's a hell of a good universe next door, let's go. We are here to go. Isn't that what Jason meant? He meant drop the corpse. The hopeless case of faith we courted, slept with, suffered from. Let's go. This time we will catch the plane, catch the bull by the horns. Suicide must become a gesture of the past. You must engage, you must locate access to the universe just next door. Mutuality is the only ground strong enough, the only workable system. As we leave this universe of faith, this time of control, anger becomes action. We are coming. This time it's not just Jesus who gets to come. When you go, when you let go, you travel, you come. The adversary strikes, you submit, the weapon dissolves, melts into your flesh, and you never were apart. We can only achieve mutuality, reciprocation, by understanding the other that is within, changing its name, defining what it is we have to give each other. The weapon so sharp, so cutting, turns in the light and becomes magic for us, with us, by us. Who desires and acts not breeds pestilence. William Blake. Orgasm is the one and only moment when you can't cheat life. Godard. Corrupt is the teacher. For they who speak have only spent words to give. Do ye not speak from between your thighs? Austin Osman Spare, TOPY UK station. And there's a section break. The Big House. We all share a vision of a big house. It is all around us, within us, in our dreams, a place of our own where all our desires are realized, where we live and love together, the multiple aspects of ourselves coming together in unity of purpose, a state of psychic wholeness. It's a dream that begins in childhood with play acting and drawings, a big house in which we operate as one interdependent yet individual, a place where we can change roles, be whoever we wish to be. It's a dream that, like so many others of our early years, dies as we grow, as society forces us into separation. We become shackled by the expectations of others and retreat into little boxes of darkness seeking a false security and isolation. The world is filled with separation. There is little else to see. We lock our doors on each other, psychically as well as physically, and fret at the knock of the stranger. We fear to open ourselves to life. Little wonder that we fear then to open ourselves to others. But the childhood dream is a living thing, cannot so easily be shut away. It emerges in the world of adult fantasy, from the haunted house of horror to South Fork revolutionary siege palaces. The rich build their mansions. The big house is a part of us. The temple aims to make it real. In September, several individuals working with the Temple of Psychic Youth headquarters began the search in earnest. We traveled to the north of England to build a building a friend had told us of, a place large enough to hold conferences and in which many of us could live together. The place had a number of outbuildings we could convert to additional living space for visitors. We cannot build our own workshops. It lacked land, however, and the cost was too high for us at present. The expedition was not wasted, though. We learned much about our needs, how the big house should be structured. We envisioned a center, ultimately several centers, several big houses, in which groups of individuals are living and working together. Space to initiate experimental forms of living, to introduce different physical and psychic regimes, so that we can learn to exercise all the parts of our natures. We see ourselves rotating between temple buildings, permanently at home within the temple, but never tied to a particular place or style of living. In one place a retreat, another a place of functional work, and we see the temple able to undertake long-term research projects. We will give ourselves time as well as space. We will live in touch with the land, begin again to understand its energy. We will be self-sufficient, not necessarily in the sense of producing all our own food, our own heat, but by utilizing all our skills and integrating those into a functional whole. And by drawing our resources to a center, we will attract others who perhaps don't yet have the courage of our commitment, but who share our dream. We will explode the myth of selfishness by showing that it is by sharing that we get the most done, not by holding out, by trying to act alone. We will learn from each other so that we break the fallacy of divided labor, the habit of specialization, of isolation. The time to act is now, is always now. There is a limit to what can be achieved by study, by talk. Plans are but pieces of paper if they are not put into action, testaments to romantic notions. The big house is not a house of paper dreams. It is a reality we will make manifest. It will not be easy. Any project of this scale requires commitment if it is to succeed. We must learn to let go of previous ideas of what is reasonable and to discard the trappings of our old ways. It is an adventure, the great experiment. Life is precious too precious to waste in the continual reinforcement of that which we already know. We can stand still and take no chance only so long as we are satisfied to stand to nothing, to remain dictated to by others who say they know best. We have no choice if we are to be free. We must take the plunge and alter radically our conceptions of life, its structures, and aims. Many of us are already on this path. We invoke change as a friend, the true spirit of life. Without it, we stagnate and die. With it, we are free. The big house is no longer a mist on the horizon. It is near at hand, and we must make ourselves ready. Genesis P-Orridge, November 1988. And there's a section break. Decode, encode, A-code. Reading the books of John Lilly, especially The Scientist, led us, as does most people, into greater comprehension of the more radical contemporary speculations on evolution, communication, spiritual intelligence, and the brain. Dolphins and whales were inevitably integrated as fully respected and revered sentient beings, inseparable from our reappraisals. It's easy to love them, too. But they are not just the easy and appealing face of ecological responsibility. We have grown to believe that reposing within their intelligence and memories are precise threads of spiritual information, connecting through time to the origins of all species in this omniverse, and to all the possibilities and impossibilities of what time is, both in physical and non-physical manifestations. We believe that, whilst time does behave to some degree as an energy would, it is in our experience an all-pervading form of consciousness. Thus, all information and experience of any type whatsoever may be accessed by all other consciousnesses, past, present, or future. From time we are born into time we return. Prior to settling in California as exiles from poor Britain, on March 23, 1992, we had resided in Be Right On the coast of southern England, Brighton. We discovered there was a dolphinarium there that earned its absentee owners over $3 million per annum in profits. Believing that all human beings should be integrated as a caring part of whatever demographic area is host to their way of life, we felt that outrage and nausea at this sick spectacle were not enough on their own, and the P-Orridge family bravely chose to coordinate a campaign to expose and close down this unnatural abomination parading as entertainment. With sentient beings, activists of all age groups and socio-political, philosophical persuasions, we spent endless rainy weekends and sunny bank holidays peacefully picketing the Brighton Dolphinarium. Our own TOPYSTATION gathered over 7,000 signatures on a petition, which was presented to the committee designed to decide the fate of the outmoded prison facility. We developed positive relations with Zoo Watch, Into the Blue, local and national media, the local council, even soliciting successfully the support of our local Tory MP, Andrew Bowden. The P-Orridge family organized for TV, music, and film, celebrities to congregate for freedom festivals, and local schools developed programs for their children, raising their awareness of the issues. In their turn, the Dolphinarium's Swiss holding company employed people to stand and shout abuse, threaten, and even physically attack our pickets. The local police were called endlessly for fabricated reasons in the hope they would arrest us. This tactic backfired when the police signed our petition and gave us verbal support. Even local churches lent their support despite our clear pre-Christian British and Celtic lineage. After over 1 year of dogged persistence and intense verbal persuasion, we had dialogue with members of the Dolphinarium that their income had dropped by over £1 million. It's a sad but realistic fact that philosophical arguments and ideals are far less powerful than financial damage incurred in the minds of that species which chooses to be proprietor of such spectacles as the Dolphinarium. Nevertheless, despite smear campaigns in the press, on December 23, 1990, the announcement was made that the Dolphinarium would close for good. Members of our campaign had made contact with the Aga Khan, who offered, as an ongoing charitable trust, a lagoon in the Turks and Caicos Islands in the Caribbean to be used for the rehabilitation, rescue, and adjustment to freedom of previously captive and or abused dolphins. Into the Blue was formed to raise funds for safe and proper transport, veterinary attention, and as much rehabilitation therapy as necessary for Missy, Silver, and Rocky from another UK dolphinarium closed by similar collective action that same year, and future liberated sentient beings of the sea. However, as with all pressure for change, the full benefits will go to future generations of dolphins, whales, and even, yes, to mere human beings. The first 3 dolphins were released successfully as a group into the open seas and oceans were just over a year after the Dolphinarium closed. Since that time, the P-Orridge family have forced into exile victims of psychological warfare that is sweeping through poor Britain as it denigrates inclusivity into a withered mirror of 1930s Germany. Survival of our own family group in a foreign culture and rehabilitation and detoxification from all sense of belonging have pretty much preoccupied us almost pathologically as we empathize more, not less, with all displaced, disenfranchised, and distressed beings. Despite these essential but depleting needs and functions, we have discovered one shameful anomaly in San Francisco's beautiful and liberationally historical Golden Gate Park. 2 captive dolphins kept in worse conditions than those in Brighton, with less real justification or sensibility. After all, it's for their own well-being is less realistic than it's for the millions of dollars we can make. We do not know about local ordinances or local regulations or even local apathies over such matters to initiate immediate action, but we do know that the 2 veterans of our Brighton campaign were reduced to sobbing tears when they discovered these sentient beings, and we do know that despite the jaded, skeptical, or merely just subservient to hopelessness feelings of many, the indignation, perseverance, and passion of a few can still win a practical, permanent, and moral victory against all odds. This is what we learned most from Brighton. We won. Slowly, inexorably, frustratingly, we succeeded on behalf of those who, as of yet, cannot speak for themselves in our own languages. This lesson applies to us all and continues a lineage of protest and angry love that we must, none of us, ever allow to be denied. Genesis P-Orridge, San Francisco, January 23, 1993. Condole the Whale. Not long after, we were introduced to Timothy Wiley, a gifted writer working in realms including dolphin intelligence by Eve, a mutual friend. His speculation and conviction struck even deeper into our own spirits as we absorbed both his regenerative presence and also his seminal book, Dolphins, Extraterrestrials, Angels. We have become convinced that there is only one story, yet numerous mythological tellings, that all consciousness is linked in every dimension and direction simultaneously, and that we are each charged with discovery and navigation. Within all the stories, songs, metaphors, parables, archetypes, and myths are actual descriptions of all salient events and facts, formulae, and processes. There is no possibility in this sense of fiction. Everything is true. Nothing less than a rigorously critical transmedia exploration of the essential evidence, the prime nature of matter, life, and brain will lead beyond merely altered states into quantum states of consciousness. Condole was located by our second daughter, Jeunesse, when she was 2 years old. We were in a large second-hand bookshop in Shrewsbury, England. The shelves were piled high on several floors with all kinds of old books. She had watched us browsing and wished to join in. We said she could have any book she chose from any shelf on any one of the floors. After a short time, she returned from the and we duly purchased for her. Inside it, as we read it together that night, was a story of a whale called Condole. It is her favorite tale. This story went as follows. The mythology of Encounter Bay in South Australia tells us how, at the time of the ceremonies, the day was so hot that the streams of perspiration pouring from the bodies of the actors created all the springs and watercourses in the neighborhood. As the performers had no means of providing light for the evening rituals, they invaded Condole, hoping that he, being the sole owner of fire, would bring it with him. But being mean and disagreeable, Condole simply hid the fire in the bush and arrived without it. Enraged by his selfishness, the performers discussed several possible means of forcing him to bring his fire to the ceremonial grounds. But as Condole was a large, powerful man, no one was brave enough to follow up any suggestion. Finally, one of the performers, completely losing his temper over Condole's mean behavior, crept up behind him and threw a spear that penetrated his skull. Suddenly, the people of the ceremony were transformed into creatures. Some became kangaroos, some opossums, others the smaller creatures. Some rose into thin air as birds, while others, entering the sea, were changed into fish in their many forms. Condole, the largest of them all, became the whale, who ever since has spouted water from the spear wound in his head. Genesis P-Orridge. Timothy Wiley became a lifelong friend since the Dolphin Action days. Apart from being an amazing artist, writer, and spiritual mentor, he has also remarkable stories of life to share. The Process Church of the Final Judgment has been an obsession of mine since 1969. With Benjamin Teacher, we proposed a process book to Adam Paffrey years ago. The fruits of that idea and why areas of archiving and persuasions led directly to Timothy Wiley's book, Love, Sex, Fear, Death, being published in 2009 by Feral House. The process had a profound influence on the pragmatic methodologies and internal structures of TOPY UK station. Indeed, Love, Sex, Fear, Death contains a chapter by myself comparing the two organizations. Consider it essential reading. That's the end of Part 8. Love with Horns. This is Part 9, The Door of Light. At Stockholm, improvised on the anniversary of the receipt of the Book of the Law by Aleister Crowley. Power is often very quiet, very quiet. At the end of the day, this is what we are trying to do. Understand? Understand? And it is the brightest, most extremely searching minds that develop and think and posit new and stimulating models for us to superimpose. And we feel our own experiences, and we feel the oddity of being alive, and we have no choice in the matter. We get trapped here briefly, change nothing, measured against infinity, at the best stretching slightly nearer to the sky. The most stimulating thinkers risk all to grasp at the deepest and most hidden revelations. If they even suspect that they have glimpsed a usable piece of essential pattern, they are left crippled in the expressing of it. How does such a master pass on knowledge? Through the most flawed and mystical medium of all, language. Language, power. Language, quiet. And like most forms of behavior, it is inherited, and it must by definition contain within it coded and ancient icons of subjectivity, a mass of confusion, and a few insights. At Stockholm we could not speak. Although the sudden glow on passion mantling to the crimson cheek of either told our tale of love, although we could not speak. What needed of language, barren and false and bleak, while our white arms could link each other so, and fond red lips their partners mutely speak. What need of language when our kisses flow eloquent, warm as words and cold and weak? Or now, ah, sweetheart, even were it so, we could not speak. 4, 2, 6, 2, 3. And we lay in the monastery, and we lay in the Vatican, and we touched the walls as they crumpled like bone. And we lay back, and each eye that opened was alone. And you came towards me like hot breath, your juice flowing over my flesh. Couldn't help but touch your body. Your body like a monastery angel's, like Catholic sex, stroking her fingers in naked flesh. My breath escaping like lust rust in her hair and over my skin. Raised her clothes, and then making shame and making names came with Catholic sex. Caresses of monasteries and churches, singing of choirs, and open orgasms and liquids on the back of my hand, rubbing my cheek down my gland, working alone in the naked land, angels of breath. Wings of monasteries, Catholic sex, and you spoke from so far away, and he sucked in your breath, death, he touched her thigh, and death smiled. We live in fragments, and the comfortable ones disturb as much as the bad. Their leaves falling, we sit with delights thumbing through our dictionaries to explain. What makes this difficult? What makes happiness paralyzing like suicide? The ultimate irony of nature's game. We play it both ways, weighing up the results, choices so hard like bone. Our myths die soft and paralyze our ambition. Why am we always focused on the suffering? We are happy when we sleep and slumber, raw in pain. We feel hopeless and dead. Dreamed of a new kind of spider, mostly small baby ones, one adult with a yellow body. When you step on them hard, nothing happens. They don't squash and die. They always threaten that they may bite and poison, but they never do. It's just another possibility, keeps us on edge. Perhaps that's it. All those marvelous words composed as we wake or drift to sleep. All those words are spiders, teasing us so close to our existence. Is this the white path? In the search for signs, individuals are directions. There was a time zone long ago when feet struggled across blood-biting flint wrapped in animal skin. Bleached bones spoke of the snake wave day. If you imagine a small child with a long ribbon flickering their wrist sharply at each extremity of position, fluidly in the central space, you will picture the flow of life as it was then. Regular, like the trails of a serpent on Sahara sand, each bended knee wrapped in the moisture-preserving layers of nomadic survival, elbow cricked for support. Each bended knee sees what has passed. Time is that which emits. Arising like a knighted Templar to scan the four directions, the point of intersection between sky and earth is shimmering, not clear. There is a spinning of equality, mind, body, emotions, and spirit. These come from the simplicity of looking. Hand raised to shield eyes, the fingers of the left hand create a flickering movement like a Venetian blind. It is, of course, a frame, a threshold to travel through, in light into light. We have traveled through time many thousands of years from ritual wanderings towards words into language. All ways of closing down our basic nature, all ways of closing down our hope. And language has become the essence of what we are. Light is measured by time, and time is what we emit. We have traveled through time in a few lines, marks which have no flowing pattern, no snake, and no calligraphy. And we have been losing things as we converse. And we have been losing things as we listen. And we have been losing things as we try to be alive. And we have just been losing things. In the search for all these signs, individuals speak directions. North, south, east, west, crystal and melted by atomic fission. The sun is behind everything. Each second we observe tells us stories, parables, allegories. We see the sun. Our arms reach out to hold it. It seems so small. We have no sense of purpose. Our boar-like grunts sound raw. We shake our matted manes and feel anger. Anger. As we sit around our cave fire, all life dances on the pitted stone. No fear exists except the fear of leaving. No fear exists except the fear of dying. No fear exists except the fear of sinning. No fear exists except the beginning. And that is what happiness does. It gives you fear. The only fear that exists. Ironic, ironic. Oh, and happiness, of course, gives you insight, and life gives death. And if time is that which emits and we are outside it, then death takes us back inside it. So we can never end. And the greatest fear must be eternal life. As time passes, the addiction dwindles, detoxifying, satisfying like a jolt of steel. Muscles aching, memory no longer as loose as they were, but stiffening with age instead of lust. The demand outstrips the supply and creates insecurity. Give me sincerity any day. And now the white path is moving. Can you see a change? Is it good? Does it feel good? Do you think it should? Do you feel good? Do you remember how it was to be good? That's just the way it is. The door is always open both ways, and we stand and we watch everything, and we speak and we touch nothing. and we use our seeing and look for anything. We wash and change the power of saying, and we divide to be lost. And lost in the whole, we divide as parts and provide the soul, and we provide as parts and provide the soul. The ruins of earth leave sputtering fire, boots slashing rain across an upturned pram, escaping like dust from 0 point. Style exists on the dark side of history, the propagation of comfort, of circle of dead animals unexplained, of conflict vision of society with bitter experience, of vivisection. There will be no announcements. Rigid screams with rigid motives are increasingly redundant. Only a primal scream, a disgusted, disgusting terrorist. An X marks the spot with a cross, and this is ritual music, alive and kicking. Everything is on the head, and everything is dead. Secret passages dang with liquid open to lance the key, and the hordes are stripped for action and in itself for no reason. This is the world, everyone talking in tongues to fire-strewn spirit, convinced betrayed there is only expression loud and unclear, an exact parallel of life passing by. In each of us there are ghosts escaping like dust from control. We have the ectoplasm of youth, the final psychic rally, yet a present testament is just set in present time. Breath in a dead soul hanging by that thread, convinced and betrayed. And there lies history, a yellow spider. That's just the way it is. But when all is brought together, when space and time no longer channel all existence, when we are just a chaos of tiny pieces divorced by the dimensions from each other, we feed back the splinters and concentrate them outside the separating limits of existence so that we may last, may become one. One nature, one substance, one being, one orientation, one power, one truth, one knowledge, one awareness, one TOPI. Then and only then we can say nothing, no thing, nothing at all. And that is just the way it is. And that is just the way we speak. And that is just the way we look. And that is just the way children cry. All children cry and die. And that is just the way it is. And that is just the way it is. It's the only time you can say nothing. You know it doesn't matter. You know it's all pointless. You do know that. Where do you go when you can speak? Control is an illusion. Control is imposed, but it does not need time. It does not need life, for it is outside time. It must be, for time is a consciousness. Outside time. It is outside time. All images begin in mirrors and end inside our unconscious. All unconscious mirrors crack and cut, seep, blood stain our darkest memories. Sitting is one position. Our head crooked but balanced on our knee. Our muscles tremble and we shake. We are left and we are right. Corrupted. Corrupted but nearer to the mortality. We are trained to fear. Encased in the concrete of acceptance by our peers where it can do us no harm. Fear and ignorance remain. In describing life, its grandiose stupidity, we can be motivated by compassion and motivated by despair. Colored by not a little sarcasm and cynicism. Yet in every picture there is enervation and texture that rely upon a resented caring for its composition. Framed by our paranoias, framed by conditioning, framed by false witness in the left and the theft and the right and the theft of all pieces of silver. We kiss the cheek of the land that bites us. We receive nothing in return. But nothing is why we came here. Nothing is what we so awkwardly strive and fight for. Nothing is our very precise confrontation with reason. It's easy to forget nothing and hard to describe it. What was it we said once in the mud? The expressions that there is nothing to express? Nothing with which to express? Nothing from which to express? No power to express together with the obligation to express. Creative action, destructive action. A perception of the weird phenomena of being alive. To illuminate, clarify, and describe some part of human experience, trying to grasp or even form the values that guide that experience in a given age of pieces of time. And whilst time is that which emits, we, for better or worse, are those who do not. The mirror receives our staring gaze. We melt quietly and then sink away, leaving a smoky, cloudy effect like bleach spreading into water. To cleanse our guilt, we must describe our fate. Objective war zone correspondence using the oral language of everyday life. Shattered or not, our message remains neither fixed or dramatic. True values never changes. True value remains in the only real sense. Only time is a constant value, and time is outside our life. Nothing is more real than nothing. Human experience is sadly the experience of nothing, and the only reality it knows is nothing. After the accumulation of too much history, we have lost our innocence. We cannot easily believe in any explanations. We describe rather than feel. We touch rather than explore. We lust rather than adore. We play rather than think. We abuse rather than give praise. So there you are or not. And so you are there. And that's just the way it is. In a distant cave, individuals are wrapped in animal skins, painting sorceries on their temporary cave shelter. Across the mountains, a boy is sewn in bloody warm skins to dance the sacred dance of Pan. The point where the animal spirit and thought spirit separated. The moment when society became inevitable. At this moment, the knowings which were contained in states of not thinking were encoded. The myths, legends, allegories, religions are now where they reside. The search of high art and high magic has been processes of retrieval. In order to facilitate completion of reintegration, we search for the knowing we lost. The reestablishment in the individual of a permanent state of zero time. Zero language, zero thought. This is our holy grail, where consciousness can exist within its own planes, just as if it were the light. It is no accident that these encoded truths are often seen as pictures or seen as picture stories. For every picture is made of light. Eam the light, eam the truth, eam the light, eam the way, eam the light. Language is the most corrupt of messengers. In the distance there is truth which ends like a knife. The bridge we have laid will always give us life. And we who cross on a goat we ride or fall like fruit on a Red Sea tide. The snake in its time, its teeth are seed. They press like flesh on those who bleed. The cross is gold as is our love. The goat is bold, it eats the dove. Dust to dust, dust to dreams. Anoint the stone with blood and screams. The rod and almond rise and grow, they mask the blood and light the O. The door of light is loud and full, it hides the fish we cannot kill. From all our eyes the future leaks, the path is made, the shell is weak. He who is asleep with words shall gain his peace by force of swords. If you could understand, you would just take my hand and I would spread so far, just like Arcadia. No fear except the fear of leaving. Death is like each other. Life has only dreams to recommend it, and the security of being inside. To be part of a group, to be inside, is to enter the body and partake of sex. We thrive on violation. We attempt to recreate the excitement of a first moment's intensity by deceptive means. There are no taboos, nothing is forbidden. Happiness can give you fear, of course, the fear of it ending. The only real fear is fear of ending, and the only joy is violation. Unhappiness gives cruel insight. Happiness makes death a threat. As time passes, the addiction to happiness dwindles, always a jolt of steel, the orchid in the metal. Muscles no longer as loose as childhood ache in memoriam, stiffened with age before beauty. Age before lust. Age before love. Demand outstrips the supply, and we congeal fixed in parables and fantasies. The past controls through people. Little girls become young ladies. They attract by their lack of experience, unaware of the spell. More concerned with being inside than observation, they accept the host, their language lulls. Their eyes close, the words are spoken, everything is taken in. They create a ghost that haunts us forever, the ache for reclamation. Perhaps the story goes, if you recreate that first moment past, you can travel back in time. Or by creating a stranger situation, replenish lust. Violation is a form of breaking the rules, a necessary act to exist. Conscious deception, threat of oneself and one's security. Conscious attacks on one's feeling of being safe affirms existence. It makes us real. Sexuality, sex, getting inside makes real too. And once inside, we can make anything happen. Eyes shut in a coffin, a world of darkness. We travel into that darkness to reconvene our emotions, and listening hard, we see every detail of every sexual act. Little girls masturbating about tomorrow, every second losing its intensity, creating the need forever to go back inside and feel safe. To travel back and to feel alive, we have to become our own sperm. It really is so difficult. What we have creates our need. Restrictions are removed like school uniforms. We discover eroticism in both manners, and manners maketh man and woman. We enter our bodies, we are inside. Inside is quiet, scarcely a solution in sight. Sharing a body is nothing. Sharing insight, being inside, is everything. A fine balance maintained by neurosis. When we break rules, we become fools, driven by desire for ignorance. We don't want to know. All those rules are created by a wound. We never escape them. We never escape them. We descend into them, rats in a trap made up of all the letters we know. All paranoia comes from the past. It takes us like a rape and damages, but in the morning after the night we fall in love with the light. The solution is to touch skin, to stay safe and heat deep inside. Better pain, better hurt, better confusion than boredom. Better to give all than do nothing. You are your own owner. You can give yourself a name. You can give yourself a new family. Give yourself back to yourself. This process increases and gets deeper. You can shatter yourself, begin to rebuild. There is an anger inside, an anger at the past, an anger at society, an anger at hypocrisy, at stupidity, at lies, cruelty, righteousness, religion, politics, war, violence, sexual oppression, sterility of vision, genocide, culture-side, and 1,000,001 foundations of modern life. This anger is natural. It is the warrior rising up in clarity. It is you reclaiming your right to exist the way you want, to have a future, to be safe, to leave your descendants their own place in history, because you care so much, because you love so much, because you insist on possessing your own self so much. You will feel in every cell the pain and sorrow of seeing what those addicted to power and control have done to you, and they are still doing it. Genesis P-Orridge, improvised poetry at TOPY Scan, 1989, and there's a section break. Will the future leak through? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was XXX. What scared you all into time, into body? I'll tell you. The Word. Prisoner came out. The great skies are open. Who is Beaujolais? Who is he? But Jesus said, suffer little children, and forbid them not to come into me, for such is the kingdom. Whatever you are is a mirror of what we are. And if you can't believe it's happening, pretend it's a movie, as it is. But Jesus said, I am what you have made of me, and the mad dog, devil, killer, fiend, leper is a reflection of your society. In my mind's eye, my thoughts light fires in your cities. Every religion in the world that has destroyed people is based on love. Christ said, love thine enemy. Christ's enemy was Satan, and Satan's enemy was Christ. Through love, enmity is destroyed. Through love, saint and sinner destroy the enmity between them. Through love, Christ and Satan have destroyed their enmity and come together for the end. Christ to judge, Satan to execute the judgment. After this I looked, and behold, a door was opened in heaven, and the first voice which I heard was as if were a trumpet talking with me. Let's not hear that noise again and again. That may well be the last word anywhere. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Who is Beaujolais? Who is he? The shivering boy who has chosen to be stripped naked and sewn into the warm skins. When he dances, his musicians blow a sound like the earth sloughing off its skin. He's the father of fear. He is, too, the father of flocks. The good shepherd works for him. But Jesus said, I am the good shepherd, who giveth his life for the sheep. But he who are not leaveth the sheep, and the world catcheth them. There's a light seeping out from under the door, and behind the door burns our sacred cross that shines for them. It burns for them, and the sound is made is a sound of fear. The key that unlocks the empty rooms, the rooms of hell, outshine the face of God in the madness of the mire. But Jesus said, I don't mind being tortured. What about you? I'm no longer afraid. I just as soon bring it to a gallant, glorious, screaming end, a screeching stop than one glorious moment of triumph. Rub out the word forever. Simon Woodgate, April 1989 and January 1990, Era Maximus. This concludes section 114, where I read Part 8, Love with Horns, and Part 9, The Door of Light. Tomorrow I'll continue with the Psychic Bible by reading Part 10, Time Mirrors.